Welcome to Modern Alchemy, where we talk about all things related to business, wealth building, and alternative methods of creating success. My name is Joe Jennings. I'm an ex-corporate executive with 15 years of experience. My passion lies in helping entrepreneurs transition out of their 9-to-5s into full-time entrepreneurship.
Hi, I'm Christina Nichols. I'm an energy healer. I also came from the corporate world and quit about a month ago. How's your day, Joe?
It's going really good. How are you?
Good. We always like to introduce with a fun question. So I was thinking about our fun question for today. Are you ready?
I'm so excited.
I'm so excited too. This might be my favorite part of the week. So I wanted to know, what condiments do you put on your hot dog?
We live in Chicago, and this is going to be total sacrilege, but I'm like ketchup on a hot dog, ketchup. So if I'm at Costco or if I'm doing it up in the self-service stand, I'll go ketchup, relish, and then maybe some onions. I don't love sport peppers. But yeah, at home it's ketchup only. But although I don't think I've owned a hot dog, purchased a hot dog at the store in like a decade. But yeah.
Big hot dog fan here. Take that however you will.
Are you more traditional?
I'm like fully loaded Chicago dog. Let's go.
So it's...
Oh, I want you to put mustard, and then I want the relish. I want the very chopped fine onions. I expect a pickle. I expect the seasoning.
Love a pickle on there, yes.
Sport pepper.
Sport peppers are weird.
What do you mean?
What?
Yeah, they're so spicy.
But is a sport pepper like the pepper version of a maraschino cherry? Like they don't look like they're real. They're like neon. Is that a real pepper?
Oh, I think because it's been pickled.
Sport peppers are pickled?
Yeah.
Oh.
Like pepperoncinis?
Pepperoncinis are...
Those are also pickled.
Remember when Papa John's used to include those?
No.
So Papa John's would give you a pepperoncini.
Oh, they give you a little side cup?
Yeah, no, it'd be like a full pepperoncini, but no one would eat them because they're weird. I'd eat a pepperoncini, but that's because we grew up with like Mediterranean families, and the pepperoncini is not weird, but normal people would just be like, why is this in here? So Papa John's doesn't give you a pepperoncini anymore. Probably saved them $1 billion a year in pepperoncini budget.
Yeah, like when airplanes stopped serving, was it United stopped giving olives in their salad, and they saved like $3 million?
That's crazy. And I think the thing with olives too is they're very polarizing. They probably had enough people go, I don't want this because there's olives, where they're like, why are we even putting olives?
Or they were like, we're spending $3 million on olives.
What's our olive budget?
Saving? Yeah.
Well, then I remember when I was younger, before you got on the plane, there were two iterations of it. Iteration one was there was always food. It wasn't great, but they would like serve you a meal.
Yeah.
Iteration two was it was a bag as you walk down the gate. What's that thing?
Tarmac?
Whatever that covered square thing is. Yeah, you're in there. Then there'd be like a bag with like a sandwich, a little meal. And then they were like, let's charge these motherfuckers. Let's get some dough.
I never had the bag.
Yeah, they bagged it up. I was a United guy for like forever. So maybe that was a United thing.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if we can be friends after the ketchup. I'm really concerned.
It's very polarizing. What's your favorite place to get a hot dog in Chicago?
Gene and Jude's.
Gene and Jude's.
The Gene and Jude's, fun fact, they don't sell ketchup either. And there's McDonald's next door. And McDonald's will charge you if you go get ketchup packets because they don't sell ketchup.
Yeah, and originally they would just be like, if you want ketchup, you can go next door. And then McDonald's was like, we're giving away so much ketchup.
Yeah. What about you?
I don't know, man. I'm just going to say Portillo's. But
classic.
I've been to Gene and Jude's, and anyone from Chicago, this is probably going to make you delete me as a human, but I feel like it's super overrated.
Well, this has been fun.
The first time I went there, I ordered a double dog thinking I was getting 2 hot dogs. It's 2 hot dogs and 1 bun. And I just remember being angry. Like,
but it'd be double dogs.
Yeah, it was me not understanding what they're implicating.
I would say.
Yeah. And that's the type of place. And if anyone's from Chicago and you've been there, you know this. But if you're not from here, it's the type of place where they're like, too bad. Like, oh, you ordered it wrong? Well, that's your order now.
Oh, this is the kind of place my parents had always gone there. And they would say there'd been nights where they'd go and people would be lined out the door and 2:00 hits and they close the door. And like, you're in line. That's too bad. We're closed. They don't need business.
That's crazy. Good for them. But yeah, they're like considered the gold standard in Chicago. Yeah, I do like a Costco hot dog too.
I love everything about Costco.
Their pizza's really good.
I don't work for Costco, but maybe I should.
Yeah. They just raised their employee salaries. So pro tip here, anyone who's in business, paying your employees more actually makes you more money. So taking care of your employees, they take care of your business. Look at Walmart, look at Sam's Club versus Costco and Target. Which store would you rather shop at? If you're watching this, I'm assuming it's Target and Costco.
Yeah, it makes sense. Your turnover isn't as high. People have brand loyalty. They've been there for a long time. Now they're extra knowledgeable.
They self-police. When you work at a place that takes care of its employees, they'll self-police. So it winds up being this thing where you don't need as much oversight, or you don't need to cut corners, because the employees will make sure that the other employees aren't cutting corners.
That makes sense. I'm assuming Trader Joe's probably fits in there.
Absolutely.
Home Depot.
Yeah, absolutely. Dude, the Home Depot managers, that's a 6-figure job. A fucking smock, 6 figures.
I think if you manage a Costco, you're looking at like a $400,000.
No.
I'm pretty sure.
I mean, that makes sense,
maybe
considering
like $350.
like a store manager.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if they're doing a sort of equilateral math where how much money the store itself is making, that's fair, because those stores, go to Costco on a weekend, and you guys know this, it's a madhouse.
Man.
Probably make millions of dollars. So that like on a weekend.
In a day, maybe.
Yeah.
It's very possible. Well, great talk about hot dogs. I know a lot of our questions have been centered around food, but I can't promise they won't continue to be centered.
That's fine, because I love food. Well, let's jump into it. I'm excited to learn about your topic.
Yeah. So today, my topic isn't unfortunately centered around food. It's actually centered around epigenetics. I'm not sure if you're familiar with epigenetics. So if you're not, I'm going to teach you all about it.
I obviously know everything about it, but anyone listening who doesn't, tell them, not for me, for them. Yeah.
Makes sense. Well, I actually read this article, and so I'm going to just read you part of the article because it was so interesting. It was in National Geographic from June 2014. I'll make sure to put a link in the description below. So it started out with, can trauma be inherited through genes? And I saw this title and immediately was like, I've been telling people this forever, because I think it's really simple of us to assume that we would inherit the genetics that we can only see with our eyes, as opposed to emotions. I mean, we know that we inherit potential diseases and illnesses and skin, hair color, whatnot. But what about the emotional trauma? Do we inherit that? And today I'm about to tell you, we do. So getting into the study of epigenetics. Epigenetics is basically the study of how when genes turn on and turn off. So they're not always on and they're not always off. And let's say you as a parent have 3 children, they may not have the same genes turned on or off. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So imagine when you see twins, some fraternal twins, let's say, they have the same set of genes, but they could look completely different, even though their genes are all of the same genetic makeup. Some are turned on, some are turned off. The author then cites multiple studies, and these studies all suggest that this might be a mechanism through which a parent's trauma could be imprinted in the genes of the offspring, and the epigenetic effect would be multi-generational. Let me explain more. So epigenetics is a molecular process known as gene expression. This boosts the activity of some genes and quiets others by adding and removing chemical tags called methyl groups to the genes. Then the author cites a number of different studies, which you can find in the link. And all of these studies all suggest the same thing, that it might be a mechanism through which the parent's trauma is imprinted in the genes of the offspring, and the epigenetics affect multi-generations of offspring, essentially. Dr. Udall, she's a professor of psychiatry and neuroscience of trauma at Mount Sinai. She says, if you feel you've been affected by a very traumatic, difficult, life-altering experience that your mother or father had, there's something to that. So to understand how emotional trauma can transcend generations, the article explains a bit further, and I think this is where it starts to really click and make sense. So I want you to consider the distinction between the genome, which is the body's full complement of DNA, and the epigenome. Isabel Mansui, a professor in neuroepigenetics at the University of Zurich, likens it to the difference between hardware and software. So you need the genome hardware to function, but it's the epigenetic software that instructs the gene on how the genome should behave. So all the time, in every cell, in every moment, the epigenome is changing. It responds to all sorts of environmental factors, from chemical exposures to nutritional deficiencies. The epigenome determines which genes will be activated at a given time and which will remain silent. The author then goes on to explain how one study uncovered an epigenetic mark in Holocaust survivors and their offspring, and they assessed 32 survivors in the adult children, and they all had the same mark.
Damn.
Does that make sense? It's very heavy, but when you hear it, I think in terms of the hardware and software, it starts to make sense. Like an application on your phone and how is it running for you?
Yeah. Yeah. And the way that I look at it is essentially the genes are the hardware, and then the epigenetics are what expression of the gene. So let's say the genes have 10 ways to express themselves based on the epigenetics, the software, your environment, your mindset, past traumas, stuff like that. That's going to be the expression of the gene. That's why it's hereditary. People think, like, let's say cancer, which is a real shitty one, is hereditary. It can be hereditary because you probably have the gene. But if your epigenetics don't express that gene in that way, then you don't get cancer.
Exactly. And we'll talk in a minute about where that expression could come from. So when I first learned about epigenetics, it was from one of my mentors who really got me into energy healing. She's the one that unlocked everything for me. And she is an expert in epigenetics. So she taught us about this study, which I did look up later because I wanted to make sure I just had the credibility for you. And I'll tell you about it in just a moment. But it's Brian Diaz, a neuroscientist at Children's Hospital Los Angeles and a professor at the University of Southern California Neuroscience and Neurogenetic Programs. So what did Brian do? Brian, he wanted to see, can we inherit emotions and trauma? And so he went to the lab and he got a bunch of rats. And he knew that rats really love the smell of cherry blossoms, the smell of the flowers. It's just like they would perk up, their body language would change. I think they would study the rats and see what do rats respond positively to. And cherry blossoms happen to be one of the things. So he has the control group. He brings the rats in and he looks to see what happens when you pump cherry blossom into this container of rats. And again, all positive responses. So after some time, he takes half of I don't know if he took half, but he has a second group, right? So we have the control group and then we have the second group. They also bring the cherry blossom smell in. After a while, they started zapping the rats' feet. So I don't remember if they were on a mat or something, but somehow they'd get a little electrical shock.
When they smelled the cherry blossom?
The scent would come in and then they'd get the shock.
Oh.
So now the second group now does not respond well to the smell of cherry blossom.
Because now they're associating it with the shock. Okay.
Yes, after time. So he didn't just stop there. Instead, he had these rats procreate not one generation, but 2 generations down the line. Grandbaby rats.
Yeah.
If you will.
Yeah.
So now they bring the grandbaby rats into the room and they bring in the smell of cherry blossoms. No zapping, just the cherry blossom smell. And they all had a visceral reaction of fear and danger. I think the way he described it is like, crouching down if you were suspecting something to happen.
Yeah. They don't know why, but they're recoiling. And then the other set were chill because they had a positive experience with it.
I love cherry blossoms.
That's mental.
Cherry blossoms have never hurt me. Why would I not like cherry blossoms?
I son read it. I don't read, guys. Let's be honest. No, I do read, but most of the things I digest, I say I read, but it's from like a podcast or a video. I saw a video they took. I believe it was white foxes or some red foxes, and they kept generationally breeding them more docile or more aggressive, and literally personalities are. I wonder how that plays into epigenetics. I have not actually really thought about it. I think people understand the concept of people can inherit personalities if you're in an aggressive family or a kind family, funny family, whatever. But there's got to be something.
Well, they do that with dogs.
Yeah, it might even be getting nature versus nurture there, which I'm now I'm thinking. But I do think that personality's got to have something to do epigenetically, because that study there, especially if someone is more anxiety bred into them from a bad experience, it makes sense that they might develop a more anxious personality if they've had more multi-generational trauma.
Right. And so this doctor, he decided, okay, we've done this once with cherry blossoms. Let's just try it again. And they also did it with the scent of almonds. Huh. Not the same study, but same results as the previous study.
So they wanted to make sure that it wasn't cherry blossom specific. So they tried another
just in case.
Pleasant smell.
Exactly. What is really interesting back to the example with twins, I'm sure you've heard stories where siblings, twins, one will be really successful, one just can't get, maybe we'd call them like
What's
a fuck
up
up.
with that?
It's the same thing. So some people are impacted by the genes and some aren't. You can have children that have blonde hair and brown hair. I mean, you've seen kids come out, their brother and sister skin tone is completely different. Eyes are completely different. Hair is completely different. One happens to get this set of genes and one doesn't. So when we look at this study and we can think about, now we have proof that trauma is passed in from generations, and the trauma might be passed to one sibling or another. And maybe you have capability to handle that trauma, or maybe you don't. What I see in energy healing is people have things that they can't explain. So my mom, she's terrified of heights, but she doesn't really have a story to tell me.
Same. What the fuck is that?
There's been highways where she's had to like lay in the back of the car. We were in Greece with the visiting family, and we were going up this mountain, and she was laying down in the back seat of the car, basically yelling the whole time. And she couldn't even see out the window. She just knew we were going up a mountain. But maybe, who knows? Maybe some grandparent died off a cliff, or they died, and she's been holding on that trauma, and that's why she can't explain why in this life she feels so strongly about heights.
I just thought that was a very normal fear based on, well, yeah, it makes sense because if you fall, you die. But I have no idea why I'm afraid of heights.
I will put my nose up to a window and look over. I will go over. I'm happy to hang half my body over a railing.
What?
Not a
Yeah, that's crazy. That's wild. What I find fascinating, especially with the twins example, and I didn't think of this. I understand that, mom and dad make sperm and egg come, whatever. You guys know about sex. But then the genes go in a blender, and it's like rip, and then there's like a likelihood of dominant, what subdominant, whatever.
I don't know, but yeah,
you know what I'm talking about. It's like why does this one cousin have blue eyes, but everyone's got brown eyes? Because there's a minor chance of them getting it. But I never thought about it. Dominant recessive, where even your epigenetic signature is also in that percentage blender, where you see the twins that have the same genes, but actually they're expressing themselves differently. That's why one is anxious, one's confident or whatever.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I see it so often, especially in the work that I do with people's emotions. And if you're holding on to trauma, here's another example, actually. Let me back up for 1 second to give this example. So I don't have any siblings. I'm an only child. And my mom and I went to go visit her brother, my Uncle Denny, in the state of Washington. And when we were there, I saw things that he does, that my mom does, and that I do. And I was like, oh, this is really interesting behavior. We all live in different places. My mom and my uncle haven't lived in the same state for majority of their lives. And they also have a 7-year age gap. So my mom said, my uncle was out living life when she was a little kid. He wasn't really around a lot, which makes sense. He's a teenage boy with a little girl. But they have these same traits. And I swear we get it from my grandmother from the Great Depression. So there's certain things we do. Like I hoard, if you go in my cabinet, if I'm running low on something, I'll buy a second one to make sure there's at least 2 of whatever the thing is.
Nice. That was like me when I used to be a smoker.
Okay.
That went out, I didn't have a full pack.
Okay, yes.
It's probably a little healthier of a concept, though, what you're doing.
Yeah, but my mom and my uncle will have 3 or 4 of them.
Wow.
Oh, we have the same thing. I don't feel the need to have as many.
So you've kind of broken it generationally where the scarcity isn't as deeply ingrained.
Yes, like if you go to my parents' house, the freezer, the fridge, the cabinet, stocked.
My mom's too.
Stocked.
My shit is like, oh, fuck, I need food. I'm constantly going, I need to go to the grocery store.
Yeah, like I have a lot of condiments and I have a lot of beverages. But aside from that, I'm often running out of things. But if I have a canned item, I will get a second one, even though I don't use canned items that much.
Did they go nuts during COVID? My mom was buying so I remember I went over there and she was buying anything that was related to not wet wipes, the Clorox wipes, shitload of Clorox wipes, toilet paper, paper towels,
water,
baby wipes, water. And then it got so barren at one point that she bought a bunch of this not Prime. You couldn't click the Prime Now button to get this toilet paper. I mean, shit was taking so long in COVID. And it came and it didn't have any paper.
The holes?
The tubes. It didn't have the cardboard tube in it. It was just someone had taken a spool and started with the toilet paper and just made like a fucking, like literally like you could use it, but you couldn't hang it on your thing.
Right.
Yeah, it was bananas.
It was a while.
I didn't stock up at
I don't
all.
remember
I think
now,
I stocked up on baby wipes because just so you guys know, if Dude Wipes is out there, any wipes, you want to sponsor me, I'm in. I will talk about it all day just for free wipes. You don't have to give me money.
We're clean.
I do it. Baby wipes is absolutely not related to the podcast. PSA, if you are using toilet paper only, you're disgusting because it's gross down there. You're moving stuff around with dry paper.
Yeah, I don't really like bathroom talk. Can't even like look at the camera right now. I have a bidet. You should be clean.
Bidet. There you go. All right, let's jump back into this topic.
Yeah, my mom, like the Tide. I don't use Tide, but detergent. There would be 12 detergents.
Dude, my mom has that many. I'm not kidding you.
What are we doing?
And they're all the small ones. I'm like, why don't you get some big ones? Well, these are easier to.
Oh yeah, I guess my mom, she'll find a coupon or something. I don't know. Retirement, she's just doing her own thing.
Many times. My mom has so much laundry.
But this must be inherited because at no point I don't think my mom and dad weren't struggling. They could afford everything. It sounds like.
And what was going on during their generation?
But it
wasn't. It was their parents.
Yeah. So that's just an example I saw. And my uncle, I could see parallels my uncle, my mom, and myself. And it wasn't obvious until the three of us were living together in a house for 2 weeks. It's like, oh, we are so alike with some of the things we do. And I don't think some things are mine. I definitely know there's certain things and approaches that I take to life and the way that I think and fears and anxieties that aren't mine because I don't have a life example.
Yeah.
For why I should feel this way. And
so do you think there are quirks that aren't explainable by nurture?
Yeah.
Okay. Like there's no way that it could have been the example with the like hoarding, but people that are not, I mean, epigenetics is a real science studied at Stanford and other schools, but some people be like, well, you just learned that from like subconsciously observing it. So you 100% are like, there's no way I could have picked up some of these quirks, especially if
I wouldn't say like, let's say your mental faculties aren't there 100% and anything's possible. But what I'm trying to stress is that we shouldn't rule out the fact that we could be taking on emotional trauma from our parents. I
completely agree with you there without question. Christina and I were friends in the city before I started working with her as a client actually, and now we're business partners. But that's a lot of it is clearing out this goo that it's like, why am I afraid of heights? I didn't learn to be afraid of heights.
Yeah, or why do I have a block on receiving money? Why do I feel weird about charging people? Why do I want to give everything away for free? Why don't I value myself in certain regards? Why don't I think I'm worthy enough to charge more for a client? This could all be baggage that isn't yours. My parents were not entrepreneurs. And if I have any worthiness on charging or receiving money, that must be coming from somewhere else.
Wow. I had it. Yeah. And you just kind of gave me a micro breakthrough. So my uncle Nick, who was really successful, would always joke because my grandpa was a super straight-laced guy, and he would say, Dick, my grandpa's name was Richard, Dick, if you were just a little more, I don't know what word he would use, but if you weren't as honest, you would be way richer. And I think my grandpa had a weird thing around overcharging people. He was really big on being fair. Like he did well, but imagine if he was more sharky. But his dad was a doctor, but he would trade services, like the immigrants, Italian immigrants, whoever, they would be like, oh, here's a chicken, or here's like a dozen eggs. So yeah. Maybe there's something from that where this exchange of money in a high level, it had created this, I don't know what it is, because I struggle with that. I want to be fair.
Where it feels icky?
Yeah, I'm like, I really want to be fair. But a lot of times me calling something fair, you try to perceive what the other person thinks is fair, and then you wind up undervaluing yourself and not charging enough. And it's not a good process.
Yeah. Today, before we started recording, I made a comment to Joe, what's your barometer for this thing? And I think that's a great question. What's your barometer for fair? My barometer for fair could be different than your barometer.
Especially when you talk about price psychology. Like if I think something's expensive, someone might be like, oh, that's okay. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, if you see the value in it, you may not even think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Or, for example, my mom will ask me, well, how much was this at the store? And I go, I don't know. I just bought it. Like, I don't think about that. I need gas, so I'm just going to buy the gas. I'm not going to shop around and go here and there. I'm just going to go to Costco. I'm going to get the gas, whatever the price is, because I need the gas. And also I think that is more valuable, just going to one gas station than shopping around for a better gas.
Dude, trying to save money on produce and gas and like stuff you just need is the biggest. It's so wasteful. Unless you can, like, if I see a really good deal on toothpaste or loofahs or body wash,
Sure.
something I know I'm going to use and doesn't go bad, yeah, then buy a bunch of it.
Sure.
But I'm not going to be like, let me open up the Savers. Oh, okay, apples are 25 cents less at this store. Let me go out of my way to go to 6 stores. Or what's the closest gas station? Is it 50 cents more per gallon? Which it never is. Maybe it's a quarter. Cool.
Yeah, I mean,
Is it $2?
we're lucky enough that we don't have to worry about it.
Fair.
And as someone that's moving into the entrepreneur space, which is hopefully you, viewer, I'd recommend too to really look at what are your relationships with the worthiness that you have, and is that yours or is it someone else's? Because you don't have to hold on to it, regardless if it's yours or not. You can totally get rid of it. You can clear it. You can move past it. It's very much possible. Which also brings me to the closing of this article. The study, there was one last study that was done, and they looked at adult mice that had been traumatized in early life. And then they had a group of adult mice that were traumatized in early life and a group that wasn't traumatized. And what they did is they had the non-traumatized group in a healthy colony, community, of whatever you call a gaggle.
Yeah, what's a rat?
Right.
A gaggle of rats? A grat?
Yeah, is it a pack? Like the rat pack? Is that what?
Rat pack. I hope it is. It probably isn't, but I hope that's what it is.
We'll call it a pack. So a healthy pack of rats. And then they took one of the traumatized rats and they put them in the healthy pack. And then they kept the other rats that were traumatized together. So you have 2 groups. You have, 3 groups. You have healthy rats, not healthy rats.
And then mix.
Healthy rats, 1 traumatized rat.
Oh, just one. Ooh.
So they had 1 traumatized rat to see what happened.
Okay.
And in the healthy rat groups, they had running wheels, they had toys, they had mazes, they had a lot of activities. And they compared the mouse that was traumatized living with the stimulated setting with the healthy enclosure. And the traumatized mice that were by themselves, they continued to live in this trauma. Things didn't get better for them, right? They didn't show signs of perking up and feeling better and finding energy.
Even with them saying, hey, here's a wheel, go run, get fun.
Only the traumatized group. We're talking about the traumatized
Yeah. The traumatized group didn't get toys.
The traumatized group didn't get anything to help stimulate them or make them
Got it.
Essentially.
So it's like that's the an analogy of just stewing and sitting with your trauma and not trying to improve it. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I was trying to say. Thank you.
No, I get that.
And then the one mouse that is with this positive group that is doing well, they are stimulating their brains and their minds. They showed there were no symptoms of trauma, and there was no symptoms of trauma behavior in the offspring either.
What?
So it
disinherited the gene expression through its environment.
Yes.
And that's another layer.
So enriching the traumatized mice helped them regulate the body's stress response, and they no longer showed signs of trauma, either in themselves or down the line when it came to the offspring.
So, wow, okay. That's wild as hell.
I'm saying all of this because when you're not dealing with your trauma, you're passing it down to your kids. And if they don't have a healthy environment to deal with their trauma and your grandparents' trauma, then it may not be good for them. And this is why, people say you need to get out. We need to move. We need to stimulate our minds. We need to eat healthy foods. We need to do things for ourselves that make us happy. All of this, allowing yourself to be in an environment that fosters whatever health is for you, will raise everything up. You'll have more opportunity, more things will be available to you. And if nothing else, your mind will be in a place to really set you up for success, especially if you're trying to be a business owner or entrepreneur, or you're trying to climb the corporate ladder, whatever you're trying to do in your endeavors. If you don't have a healthy brain and a healthy mindset, then nothing else will really be able to stay stable in the future. It'll just break down like a house of cards.
I really wish they taught this more. It's one of the more relatively newer layers of genetics.
Yeah.
And it hasn't permeated everywhere. Like, there's probably a lot of people listening who this is the first time they're hearing about it, or they're kind of loosely understand it. Because I heard about it probably the first time maybe 5 years ago. But I've known a handful of people that have gotten like preventative mastectomies. Isn't that where they remove your boobs?
Your breast, yes.
Yeah, because someone in their family had breast cancer. And I don't know. I mean, whatever your beliefs on that are, I just think if doctors were more informed about the levels of epigenetics, or if people were more informed in general, something like that, you might, I don't know, maybe people wouldn't be so worried about getting, like, there are people with cancer in my family. I'm not worried about getting cancer at all. I live a healthy-ish life. I'm pretty mentally good. But I think
I think what you're trying to say is you've made the choice to work on your mental as much as you've worked on the physical.
Yes.
And I think when you are working, I would back that up. I know that when you're working on the mental, it doesn't impact the physical. And we'll go in later in another episode. I want to deep dive into this more. I just wanted to set the scene and talk about how emotions connect to the body. And we can talk about that later. And there's a lot of details that go into that. But dis-ease, when you have dis-ease in the body, it comes out as disease.
Yeah.
It is totally connected. And people that think it isn't connected don't know what they're talking about. So I'm not saying you should or shouldn't do any procedures or listen to your doctor. All I'm saying is that in addition to listening to your doctor, maybe you should see what's going on up here.
Yeah, total health and wellness. And I used to work in healthcare industry, and they actually have this thing, I believe it's called the triad system, where they actually make sure that when you're going through some sort of procedural element that's going to have a great deal of healing involved, they actually assign you either a social worker or a psychologist.
Good.
Because they understand that. And it's relatively new. Not all hospitals do this, but I think when hospitals start seeing it improve their bottom line, because they can charge more and it gets people out of the hospital faster so that they can flip them. So whether or not that it was a thing that would come from a place of good, I'm assuming that there are mental health professionals or people in that space that were like, this is working, we want to heal people. And then it ticks all the boxes for the, oligarchs or the people with the abacuses. But yeah, the mental part is essentially so important. If you're like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah, I think they do this with the Ozempic. My friend was telling me he has been going to the doctor for that, but he also had to see a therapist because I think they want to make sure.
Oh, like he doesn't have some weird body dysmorphia or something?
Yes. Also, there were a bunch of those people that used to get gastric bypass surgery, and then they lose all the weight from the surgery, and then they'd gain it back and try and go back for the surgery again. Well, because you're not fixing what's up here. There's still a mental mind fuck that you haven't worked through. And so temporarily you can lose the weight and your body can respond. But if you have these bad habits and you haven't, again, done the mental gymnastics.
Still have like fat brain, fat mind.
Yeah, and where did fat brain come from? There's probably some trauma there that probably needs to be resolved.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
I could talk about this for a day.
For real. This is good, yeah.
So to be continued, but now you can understand the basis of epigenetics. And so takeaway here is you can inherit the emotions from your lineage. And just because you inherit them doesn't mean they're going to come out, but they might. And if they do, you can heal them. And then you can be extra successful.
I will say, from doing this work to heal some of these emotional things, doing personal work and also working, or inner work and also working with Christina, it helps a ton. It's essentially removing blocks, those things where you're like, why is this so hard for me? And you don't know why. It's this crap that doesn't belong to us. But if you guys want to see the article, go in the description. There's going to be a bunch of links there. Also, if you want to work with Christina, she can help you identify some of these blocks. Go to her profile. There's a link there where you can send her a DM or book a session, I believe, in your link tree. And then make sure you subscribe. If you have a funny question you want us to ask, leave it in the comments. We hope you have an awesome day. Thanks so much for listening.
Bye.
Bye, guys.